Today, you guys, I'm going to discuss the 7 best BMWs that you can buy for the money in 2024. This day and age, the average person spends about $30,000 on a used car, so I'm going to keep this list near that price point. There are obviously many outstanding BMWs that you can buy right now in this market, but in this list, I want to focus on the cars that offer a complete package. We want to consider performance, reliability, technology, comfort, and cost. In one of my recent videos, I spoke about how fantastic the F8X value is right now, mainly the amount of car that you are getting for its current market price. In the future, I will go ahead and put a list together of those cars that I find best suited for consumers with a bit larger budget. But for now, let's stick to that $30K price point range. And just to note, these are in no particular order. I'm just laying out my suggestions. So let's get right into it. The first car on my list is the F22 M240 xDrive. The F22 was released as the successor to the E82 1 Series Coupe and the E88 1 Series Convertible. Powered by the B58, this is a turbocharged straight-six engine, which began production in 2015. The B58 replaced the N55 engine and was released in the F30 340. The B58 was named in Ward's World's 10 Best Engines 4 times. In 2016, installed in the 340. In 2017, installed in the M240, in 2019 in the X5, and lastly in 2020 in the M340. Compared to its BMW N55 predecessor, the B58 features a 20% increase in boost pressure, a closed deck engine block design, and an increase in compression ratio. The M240 puts down 335 crank horsepower and 368 foot-pounds of torque. However, BMW is notorious for underrating the horsepower in their engines, so don't be surprised if you guys see numbers out there suggesting higher than that. These cars make power effortlessly, they hook, and they are reliable. You can also find them in the market right now for $25,000 and up. If you love the characteristics of the 340 and the 440, but are looking for something a touch smaller, the M240 is the one to go for. The next car on my list is the F82 M4. We spoke about this in the last video. If you have not seen that, I'll have it linked right here. Equipped with the S55, you can get the F8X in convertible. This is the F83, the coupe, which is the F82, and the sedan, which is the F80. I chose the M4 because it seems to be the model that has dipped down into that 28K plus range, and it is not a convertible. Now, there is nothing wrong with the convertibles. However, most people go for the F82 M4 or the F80 M3. The F80s are still a bit more expensive, but they are certainly within reach. The S55 engine is the high-performance version engine developed from the N55 engine by BMW M. It was introduced in the F80 M3, the F82 M4, the F83 convertible, as well as the M2 competition, the F87. There are also versions of the CS and the GTS, which also received the S55 engine. This engine also replaced BMW's S65 naturally aspirated V8 that was in the previous generation M3. Differences compared with the N55 include a closed deck engine block, lightweight crankshaft, different crankshaft bearings, strengthened pistons and rods, different springs and valve material, twin turbos, twin fuel pumps, an active exhaust, and a revised cooling system and intercoolers. The F8X chassis is much snappier than that of the base model cars. You're getting a wider stance, you're getting wider fenders, you have a carbon fiber roof option, and overall just a more aggressive looking car when compared to BMW's other base models. The F8X chassis in general is one of my favorites out there, and I think for the cost today, it's an absolute steal. I feel like what you are getting as a total package for that amount of money is completely worth it. The S55 is a reliable engine that can make plenty of power with simple bolt-ons. You'll just need to be wary of the crank hub issues that plague the S55 engine. In my opinion, just go ahead and pin it and send it. If you want more of my thoughts on the F8X chassis, make sure you check out that video that I mentioned before. I'll have it linked again right here. The next car on my list is going to be the BMW F30 340 model, another B58 equipped vehicle. If the 240 is too small for you and you prefer the look of the sedan, the 340 is going to be the way to go for you. These also come in xDrive, so traction is not going to be an issue. And as far as the cost, the 340s are beginning to dip down into the low $20,000 range, which in my opinion is an absolute bargain for the amount of car that you are getting. I was able to make 620 wheel horsepower in my 340 X-Drive just using basic bolt-ons, a hybrid turbo upgrade, and an ethanol tune. This car was an absolute sleeper, and I found that it was more than adequate for the amount of power it was making in the streets. My fourth choice is for all of you SUV lovers. The X3 M40 was released in 2018 and is powered by the infamous, you guessed it, B58. With the X3 M40, you are getting a bit more room in the cabin and an exceptional looking SUV. It's just the right size in SUV terms, and these cars are as well sleepers. With the same reliability and performance as the other B58 models that we have mentioned, minus of course the weight, which is coming in at a little over 4,100 pounds. So it's definitely no lightweight, but for the money, you are getting an extremely solid package of an SUV with plenty of options for performance headroom. This could potentially make for the perfect daily driver for someone who's trying to just keep things simple and not have to overspend on an SUV. Plenty of room for the family, plenty of cargo, and enough power to make some jam reliably. All right, so this next one might be a tough sell, and I will admit that right off of the rip. The E9X M3 is my number 5. Now I know what you're thinking.
John, what do you mean a tough sell? These cars are iconic.
And I completely agree. However, they are maintenance queens and they are not cheap to maintain. I personally have owned 2, currently own 1, and I work on these cars weekly at our shop. So I have a pretty good idea of what it takes to properly maintain a car like this. The good news is it's usually the same suspects when it comes to maintenance items, so you can knock most of it out up front and enjoy your ownership experience. But like I said before, it is not going to be cheap. With that being said, the S65 is a thing of beauty. If you have not revved a naturally aspirated V8 with individual throttle bodies out to 8,300 RPMs, I truly believe that you have not lived. The E9X is the first and only standard production M3 powered by a V8 engine. This is what makes this car so special, and we will probably never see this again in an M3. Paired with the DCT or the manual, you really cannot go wrong either way. For those of us that prefer a much more authentic connection to the road through our car, these E9X M3s deliver just that. They still have that hydraulic steering that was abandoned when BMW went over to the F chassis. Now, I understand why they did it, but the old man in me just prefers that heavier steering feel. As far as the cost goes, it varies. If you are into the convertibles, then you are in luck. These are going for dirt cheap right now, like in the $20,000 range and even in the higher teens. If the E92 Coupe is more of your thing, you can find those for around $25,000 and up. And lastly, if you prefer the sedan, you can find those for around $30,000 and up. It should be noted, however, that these cars are getting old and maintenance is everything. I made an entire video on all of the maintenance I've done on my E92 M3. If you want to check that video out, you can do so right here. But like I said before, the cost can be expensive and it is not for the faint of heart. So you'll want to do your research and find an example that has been properly maintained and cared for so you don't have to bear the majority of the maintenance costs. Nonetheless, I could not bring myself to make this list without including this car because it is just so good. My next choice on this list is going to be the F32 440. Yes, that is right, the B58 is dominating this list, but for good reason. You really cannot argue with an engine that has won so many awards and has proven its reliability and capabilities over time. Now, comparing the 440 to the 340 and the 240, the 440 obviously has a larger wheelbase than the 240. The F32 is 182.6 inches in length, while the F22 240 is 174.5 inches in length. Now, the F30 340 is closer to the F32 wheelbase. That car measures out at 182.8 inches in length. As for the weight, the F22 M240 X-Drive weighs in at 3,560 pounds, while the F30 340 X-Drive weighs in at 3,726 pounds, and the F32 440 X-Drive weighs in at roughly 3,715 pounds. So if weight is a concern to you and you still want that B58 power plant, go for the M240 xDrive. They are all roughly right around the same price, and you can buy them in manual or automatic transmission. It's nice to have options. So my last pick for this list is a bit closer to the expensive side, but I've just been shocked at how well these cars have held their value. And I am talking about the OG F87 M2 equipped with the N55. The M2 was actually unveiled in the game Need for Speed in November of 2015, before later premiering at the North American International Auto Show in January of 2016. Production commenced in October of 2015, first delivered in early of 2016, and the M2 was only available as a rear-wheel drive coupe. If you are looking for straight line speed, this is not the one. The F87 M2 was developed for the corners, and it does that extremely well. The M2 is powered by the turbocharged 3-liter N55 B30T0. It is a straight six engine that is rated at 365 horsepower at 6,500 RPMs. The M2 features reinforced pistons and has lighter aluminum front and rear suspension components, resulting in an 11-pound weight reduction overall. The M2 is available as a 6-speed manual, which is what I had, or with a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Currently, these cars are still going for in the mid to upper $30,000 range. When I bought my M2, I purchased the car in 2020 for $32,000 with 30,000 miles at the time. The OG M2 has actually seemed to hold or even increase in value. You can probably find some out there for lower $30,000, but the majority of them are going to be in that mid to upper $30,000 range. The M2 in general just looks incredible in my opinion. Obviously looks can be subjective, but with that aggressive stance, the wide hips and the lower profile just really makes this car stand out from all of the others. Much more similar to the F82 M4, just a bit smaller and a bit lighter. I owned my M2 in manual, like I said before, and it was just an absolute blast of a car to drive. Easily one of my favorite cars that I've owned to date. So there you go. These are, in my opinion, the best BMWs that you can buy in 2024 when considering cost, performance, and the overall package of the vehicle. But go ahead down below and tell me what you guys think of this list. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Do you have other cars that you would add on to the list? Let me know what I am potentially missing out on here. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Make sure that you guys like this video if you enjoyed it. It truly does help out with the YouTube algorithm. And that is going to be it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.